TARDIS lands in mountainous snowy fields. All around can be seen icy-shaped mountains, and the sky is dark grey like the colour of dark smoke. You can hear sounds of dead winds of loneliness, devoid of life. An eerie feeling all around, like something bad happened here once. Yonaka sees this on his TARDIS scanner and stares at the screen with awe, finally seeing another world for the first time. Yonaka's companion, Nizami, interrupts his moment. Professor, these readings are all over the place. Yonaka snaps out of it, looks at the TARDIS console's atmospheric data. Yonaka then says, "It's fine. We now know it's safe to step outside, but not for long. Otherwise, I'll freeze." He chuckles. Nizami, looking excited, says, "I'll get my testing kit." And she slips through the corridors with excitement to go to the storage room to get her scanner. Yonaka walks up to the ship, types on his console, and his console appears to print a sonic probe device on a top panel that has a little compartment no smaller than a microwave. Yonaka says to himself, "Nice, this ship literally has everything." He smiles. He grabs his coat from his coat hanger and opens the door, waiting for Nizami. He sees Nizami run towards him with her scanner. "Well, wait for me, Professor." They both walk out of the TARDIS and the door closes behind them. They can feel the brisk, cold air. Nizami seems to be unaffected. Yonaka shivers. Brah, it's really cold. Yonaka and Nizami walk around what seems to be a dead forest. Yonaka walks up to a tree and leans on a tree to catch his breath, and a branch snaps, causing him to fall over. Nizami yelps, "Professor, be careful," and helps him up. Yonaka says, "It's okay, Nezi. I'm fine." He examines the tree with his sonic screwdriver and looks shocked. That's really strange. It's petrified. He looks all around with a concerned face. This whole forest is a preserved forest. What the hell? Nizami uses her scanner and yelps. They both see a tiger-looking animal on a tree, but it looks like it's been turned to stone, frozen in time as Nezami scans it. While she scans it, Yonaka notices a city in a clearing. Nizami looks at this and says in an excited tone, "Oh, so this planet is not lifeless at all. I've got a bad feeling, Professor. Maybe we should head back. I have this eerie feeling we're being watched." "All right," Yonaka says, and they both start to head back the way they came. As they walk back, Nizami sees a box near the TARDIS door that was not there before. "Professor, look!" She picks it up. "Someone left this here," she shouts in amazement. Yonaka says, "Don't be silly. I pre-scanned the whole area. There are no life signs." He looks at it with confusion and says quietly to himself, "Maybe the scanners are acting up again. I've got to read the manual to really fix that." He examines the box carefully before using his key to open the TARDIS door. After stepping in, Yonaka opens it to find meds of some kind. Nizami says, "Maybe we should go. I feel like we're being watched. There are whole cities, and someone left us this little box." Yonaka looks over to the console and says, "We should really check out that city. Who knows what we will find?" Nizami nods in disagreement. "I don't think we should go out. We need to report our findings and report back to the OC Zmeya." Yonaka sighs, puts his head down and says, "All right, fine." Nizami says, "I'm going to put my scanner back in storage," as she walks to storage. Yonaka quickly reaches under his console and opens a panel. He sees a vial of mercury, takes it out, and hides it in his coat pocket while looking around. As he hears Nizami walking back, he quickly gets up and dusts his coat, pretending he was doing something else. Nizami says, "We should take off. The Zmeya is expecting us." Yonaka walks up and pulls the takeoff switch, and the ship shakes, groaning. Nizami exclaims, "Ah, Yonaka, explain what's going on," as she looks at Yonica with concern. Yonica quickly checks the TARDIS screen and says, "Oh, the fluid link's blue, fucking wonderful," as some smoke fills the ship's console. He tries to fan the smoke with his paws. Nizami looks at Yonica. "Can you fix it?" Yonica says, "Well, we need mercury. Do you have any?" Nizami says in a sassy tone and stomps her foot on the metal floor in frustration. "No, why would I have that?" Yonica then says, "We might have to go to the city to see if I can find some. I don't have any lying around due to how toxic that stuff is." Nizami says with an upset tone. "Great, I guess we have to go after all." Yonica says, "Hopefully, I can refill the fluid links in that city if anyone is there." Nizami, putting her claws on her hips and looking mildly disappointed at Yonica, says, "You really should carry backups. That's the first thing they teach you in Osova Space Command." Yonica looks down, opens the TARDIS door and walks out, waiting by the door. "Well, are you coming or what?" he asks with his paws in his pockets. Nizami says, "Okay, fine," and runs out with Yonica. Nizami and Yonica both walk through the eerie, petrified forest once again. The air is bitterly cold, and it's beginning to snow. They start following their previous footsteps from when they walked out earlier. As Yonica walks through the forest, he feels like he's getting heavier and sits down for a minute saying, "Hold on for a second." Nizami looks at Yonica with a concerned look on her face. She asks, "Is everything okay, Professor?" Yonica catches his breath for a moment before he says, "I'm fine. I'm just a little more exhausted than usual today." He says this in an out-of-breath tone, and then proceeds to stare off into the glimmering light of the city. The city looks retro-futuristic, with big metal skyscrapers that almost look like sharp triangular rectangles of titanium with barely any windows. As he looks at them, they seem kind of dead and abandoned, showing signs of weathering as if they've been there for ages. He thinks to himself, "I really hope someone is there." Yonica gets back up, brushes the snow off his coat, and he and Nizami resume walking. As they close in on the city, the air has a sort of metallic taste to it. Yonica looks to Nizami and says, "The air leaves a metallic aftertaste, and for some reason, I can smell a lot of ozone too." Nizami looks a bit frightened and checks her bags for her scanner, but can't find her tool after rummaging through her bag for half a minute. She says, "Oh no, I forgot my scanner. I must have left it in the TARDIS. We need to find shelter. It looks like the snow is falling harder." Yonica sighs and says, "Great." As they get to the city, they see a giant building in the center, almost like a big metal dome that recedes into the ground. It is bright white and has some sort of light near it, like spotlights, almost resembling an observatory, but with no telescope sticking out. They make their way near the odd structure, and Yonica tries to open the door, but it seems to be shut with a lock. Nizami gets angry and snaps, "Yon, this city seems pretty empty. I don't think anyone's home, and it's locked." Yonica smiles, pulls his sonic screwdriver from his pocket, and shows it to Nizami, wearing a mischievous grin on his face. He says, "Well, I still have one of these, and you said it's a dumb sonic probe, but..." He stops in mid-conversation, points the sonic screwdriver to the lock, and presses the button. It makes an almost small buzzing noise, and snap. The metal lock moves, and he opens the door. He finishes his sentence with, "It's good for opening doors as well." Nizami does not look amused at all, and appears pretty pissed off. As they venture deep into the long metal corridor, it almost seems like it's some sort of bunker. But strangely enough, the place looks like it's still being used, with clean surfaces and background noise of different machines, but nowhere to be seen anywhere in the metal corridors. "Hello," Yonica shouts. Nizami looks around and says, Strange, this place is active then. As Yonica and Nizami walk, they find a terminal with a main base PC on the wall. It looks like the place has not been used for a while. Yonica goes to the base PC and sees that it's still on, showing a map of the whole planet. Yonica puts on his reading glasses and reads something on the screen that says, "Danger, radiation levels critical." Yonica's face turns pale with fear. Nizami says, "What's wrong, Professor?" Yonica turns to her and says, "The reason why I've been feeling tired is that this whole planet is highly radioactive. There are high levels of xenon isotopes. I know you Avali are really not affected, but I'm in danger if we don't get out of here." As they turn around, they see 6 of these robot pepperpot-looking robots with lights as ears and almost like a skirt of balls. They have one big eye stalk, and all 5 of them are a gunmetal green except for the one standing in the middle, which is bright red. They have a plunger-like arm and what appears to be some sort of gun, almost like they're some kind of tank. They are pointing their weapons at Yonica and Nizami. Yonica says, "Hey, we come in peace," in a nervous tone. Nizami yelps at the sight of them and hides behind Yonica. The red one says in an angry tone, "You will come with us and follow directions this way." It points to the hallway. Yonica holds a straight line for the exit. One of the robots says, "Fire!" and they fire a beam at his legs, causing his legs to lock up and him to fall over with a thud. "Ah, my legs! I can't feel them!" Nizami runs up to him. "You okay, Professor?" The red one interrupts and says, "Your leg will recover shortly. Do not attempt escape again, or we will use lethal force." Yonica tries to get up, and Nizami tries to help him stand. One of the robots reaches into Yonaka's coat and takes away his sonic screwdriver, saying, "A sonic probe?" and pushes Yonica to follow the red one, who brings them to some sort of jail cell. It's all white with a chair, and it's a small room. Yonica sits on the floor in pain, rubbing his legs. Nizami says, "Great, we're prisoners of trigger-happy mini-tanks." Yonica catches his breath and says, "This is all my fault. I'm sorry." Nizami reassures him, "It's not your fault, Professor." Yonica says, "No, we didn't need mercury. I pulled out the fluid link so we could see the city. I put us all in danger. I take full responsibility." Nizami hugs him. "Professor, I knew. I'm not dumb, you know. Us Avali have really good hearing." In the moment, she jumps and says, "Oh yeah, those drugs that were left there, anti-radiation drugs. Someone else is probably trying to help us." Yonica says, "I feel really weak. I feel feverish. If only we could go back to the ship and get it." Suddenly, the door slides open and one of the robots walks in saying, "One of you will come with me." Yonica tries to stand, but he can't. Nizami says, "I'll go, Professor. Don't worry." They bring Nizami to the main atrium and say, "We will allow you to get the drugs and go back to your ship. In return, you will share these drugs with us." Nizami says, "But you're robots." One of them says, "Negative. We are living in these life support systems. If you help us, we might be able to survive the radiation." They lead her outside, push her, making sure she's following them, and then she runs back into the forest as fast as she can. As Nizami runs, she bumps into an anthropomorphic dragon man, freezes in fear, and tries to run. He says, "Wait," as she runs back to the ship. As she rushes to the ship frantically, the dragon man is standing tall and calmly looking a bit worried. He stands in front of the ship with his hands out. She stops and backs away slowly. He says, "Wait, I'm trying to help you." Nizami freezes and calms a bit. He takes out another box of drugs and says, "Take this to the city." Nizami asks, "What are you?" He says, "I am a friend. I am a Nardaragan. Have you seen the city, right?" Nizami says, "They have my friend captive." she says in a sad tone. He replies in a serious tone, "They are what's left of the 500-year war. My species have lived on the surface after a great nuclear war that destroyed everything we had. The rich and powerful lived in bunkers for so long they could not survive the harsh outside, and due to radiation leaks, they mutated horrifically. They have to live in these horrifying travel cases. They are called Daleks, which means in Nard-Aragan, warrior of iron." Nizami calms down fully and carefully takes the drugs from the Nard-Aragan. She asks, "Hey, what's your name?" He replies, "My name is Gregory. I will get your friend. I will guide you back if I may." Nizami nods and goes into the ship, gets the other drugs, and hides them under her wings. She makes her way through the petrified forest and goes back to the city, making her way back to the dome. As the weather seems to get worse, it begins to lightning out while snowing. After a while, she makes it to the domed building and enters through the door. The red Dalek was waiting for Nizami. They stood in front of the doorway and said, "Come with us," pointing to the hallway. Nizami followed them as they led the way into the back atrium. Nizami saw that they were viewing different screens showing parts of the planet. One of them shouts, "The drugs you acquired, you will give to us." She handed over the drugs that Jorgoy gave her earlier, took a deep breath, and stayed quiet. The red one now shouted, "You will remain our prisoner and be brought back to accommodate your college." They brought her back to the cell. Yonica was lying on the ground, coughing a bit. Yonica watched the guard Dalek leave the room, stared at the floor, and said, "Do you smell that? It smells like O3. I think they draw power from the floor. It's made out of copper." Nizami gave Yonaka the medicine. "Professor, take this," she said. Yonaka got the meds from under her wing, drank it, sat up, and cringed at the taste. After a moment, he looked around the room. "Professor, what are you doing?" Nizami asked. "Shh, they're listening to us somehow," Yonaka replied, frantically searching the room for a camera or something. A guard, Dalek, with a plate of gruel entered. As soon as the door slid open, Yonica pretended not to be doing anything, grabbed the plate of food, and saw the gross mash of gruel. The Dalek said, "Eat," and Yonica replied, "Thank you," as it left the prison cell. Yonica noticed the door only opened to them somehow. He found an eye stalk camera on the ceiling and covered it with some food. Nizami got a bit scared, asking, "What are you doing?" "Trust me, Nizami," Yonaka said. He put his coat on the floor, laying down like a blanket, and said, "They're powered by electrostatic. They'll probably send someone to fix that camera, and I can probably get one to power off if I can get it off ground." Yonaka and Nizami waited for an opportunity. A guard walked in, and as soon as the door opened, Nizami took the gruel and smeared it on his eye stalk. Yonica grabbed his metal arm and pulled him in with Nizami. In the struggle, the Dalek screamed, "Help me! I'm under attack!" As Yonica pushed him onto the coat, his eye stalk slumped down and he stopped talking as he pointed the weapon at Yonaka, saying, "Exterm," and then shut off fully, mid-sentence. Meanwhile, in the atrium where the red Dalek is stationed, it watches in horror as one of the Daleks, who had tested the medicine, spins around screaming. The red Dalek quickly shoots the guard Dalek, who had tested the medicine, exclaiming, "They tricked us! They will be exterminated! They are helping the rebels! They must be destroyed!" Another Dalek checks the screen where the prison is, and the TV shows no signal on security camera 2, where Yonica and Nizami are. Nizami pokes the Dalek with her claw and steps back. Yonica opens the headpiece, looks inside the casing, and remarks, "Well, that's disgusting." He holds his paw over his mouth in horror. Nizami screams at the sight inside the Dalek. It resembles a nightmarish Nard-Aragan face with its brain exposed, wires attached to its exposed brain, and numerous tentacles. Yonica takes off his coat, wraps it around his paw, pulls the creature out, and throws it aside. He then climbs inside the casing. Nazami exclaims, "Professor, what in the hell are you doing? Don't climb in there." Yonaka replies, testing, sounding just like the Dalek. "Oh, nice. This thing has a bunch of controls," he adds. Nazami stomps her foot and yells, "Professor!" Yonaka continues, "So, this is the plan. I'm going to pretend to be the god, and we're going to try to walk out of here. Just follow my lead." He rolls out the door, pushing Nazami with the plunger-like arm, saying, "This thing is so cool." Nazami hushes him as they make their way to the elevator. Yonaka looks at a console near it and reads information. "This back exit. It's an old shipment dock. It appears to be our best chance of escape."